Hello everyone, this is Ascendance from 4FS Gaming. Now don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Titanfall 2. It is probably my favourite game to come out in recent years, and I have had an absolute blast playing it. That being said, and despite the addition of a campaign and a whole lot of post-release content, it is a bit light on when it comes to some features that were either in the previous title, or other pretty standard features that showed their heads in other shooter games in the past. In this video, we're going to have a look at some of these, and see what was left out of Titanfall 2 that could have made it even better, and speculate as to whether some of these features may make an appearance in Titanfall 3. Note that of course all discussion of Titanfall 3 in this video will be speculation, because as of right now we know very little about the potential game. When you booted up the first Titanfall game, one of the first things that you noticed was that it had no single player campaign, only a multiplayer campaign that was just normal multiplayer missions with some extra voiceover. Titanfall 2 corrected this with a fully fledged single player campaign that is generally reviewed as very good. However, this does mean that there is no co-op campaign or multiplayer campaign to speak of, which is kind of a shame. I always loved the multiplayer campaigns of Halo, Gears of War, and many other shooters, and I hope we do have the opportunity to play with friends like this in the next game. That being said, I do still certainly prefer the single player experience to something designed purely around co-op. I think that all the Halo games, with the exception of Halo 5, did do this very well, where a second, third, or even fourth player had no story explanation and they were just a clone of the main character fighting alongside player 1, so that in single player, you didn't have to have these useless AI squad mates running around. Let's move on to the meaty part of the Titanfall franchise, which is of course the multiplayer. Now most people would agree that the pilot gunplay, weapon variety, and even movement was improved from the previous game, although some purists still stand by the more difficult bunny hopping movement of the original Titanfall. On the other hand, the way that the Titans themselves were implemented did raise some more questions. In addition to not having shields, the Titans of Titanfall 2 also followed what is referred to as a hero system, in which there are a number of preset Titan classes with limited customization options. This replaced the original Titanfall system, where you could modify absolutely everything about your Titan, from the primary weapon to the ordnance ability, the chassis type, and the perk slots as well. Now to be honest, there are some really good arguments for both of these systems. The hero system is a lot easier to balance, and there are less combinations to min-max and make overpowered, so the developers can just tweak one element of a Titan class to make the whole thing weaker or stronger. While with the old system, altering one weapon for instance could upset the entire meta, as all of the Titans could use every piece of equipment. It's also nice to know that if you come around a corner and see an Ion, you know its abilities, and can adjust your tactics to deal with it, as opposed to just guessing. Does that Titan have a vortex shield? Does it have electric smoke? Before you fire off that missile salvo, it's nice to be able to figure these things out. On the other hand, the advantages of the old system are also pretty obvious. People like to fully customize their Titans. It gives the player a much greater degree of control, and there are many more potential build combinations. My personal preference would be to have a little bit of both systems, in which you have a hero system, however maybe each Titan then has the option of 2 weapons to choose from, or a much wider selection of perks in order to give the player more choice and control over their chassis. Alright, and this next one now is a pretty big one for me, and it's the lack of challenges in Titanfall 2. Yes, I know we have that first page of camo unlocks for guns, Titans, and your pilot. You can earn them by doing things such as getting 50 assists and whatnot, but these are pretty limited and the rewards really aren't that interesting. I would far prefer the challenges of original Titanfall, in which you had not only a selection of challenges for each weapon, but also for doing other feats in the game, such as goose-in ejecting pilots or hacking spectres. In addition to this, we also had timed daily challenges. As an incentive to continue to log on, these are pretty standard in most similar games. So it does make me wonder why these kind of challenges were not included in Titanfall 2. I think that a challenge system like we saw in Titanfall 1, or even the kind of stuff that they do now in the Call of Duty games, would be a welcome addition to any future title in the Titanfall franchise. Another feature that veterans of the first game will notice conspicuously absent from Titanfall 2 is burn cards. These were a selection of special perks, weapons, and abilities that you could activate for 1 life in the game. They could be as simple as an XP boost, or as cool as an amped wingman pistol that fires as fast as you pull the trigger. You could never use more than 3 per game, and they were not super OP, but they did feel good to use. In Titanfall 2, these cards were replaced with the boost system, which is more streamlined and probably more balanced, but it did then take away a whole lot of things to unlock and mess around with to keep people playing. Now this is one that I'm honestly not sure if it should come back for Titanfall 3, if Titanfall 3 does indeed happen. This is because these days, stuff like burn cards can be easily monetized, and that is something that I would rather keep out of Titanfall altogether. That being said, if they're implemented well, it can definitely add something extra and fun back into the game. There are a couple of other interesting and missing features from Titanfall 2 that I'll go over real quick, but I won't elaborate too much. The ranking system in the first game wasn't perfect, and the Titanfall franchise does lend itself more to casual play than to competitive games. However, some kind of ranking system or playlist could have extended the longevity in Titanfall 2. Then we have to consider that in-game store. I did like how in Titanfall 2 you were able to purchase perks, weapons and abilities so that you can keep them next time you regenerate. However, other than that, there wasn't much stuff that was worthwhile to spend your credits on. In the original game, we could spend currency in the black market store to get new burn cards, voices for our titans, and even certificates to replace actually completing a challenge. Finally, I did notice that the lobby and the network system in Titanfall 2 did seem to be almost a step backwards. It has always been clunky since launch, with lots of difficulties playing in a party, inviting the network to a game, or joining friends during or between matches. The simple lobby system of original Titanfall seemed to do this better, with less technical difficulties, although I do think that attempting to do something new with the network system was an interesting idea, and certainly worth experimenting with. Overall, it bodes pretty well for whatever Titanfall 3 will become, that the developers took a chance with Titanfall 2, left a lot of things behind, and also tried to experiment and innovate. They also now have a backlog of features from the first game that they could choose to refine, implement, polish up, and introduce back into the franchise. When game after game in a series is too similar, it can quickly become stale, but when the developers try new ways of doing things, the series as a whole tends to improve itself. Thank you for watching, and due to popular demand, I plan to be streaming Titanfall 2 at 10 AM AEDT this Sunday, the 28th of January. So come along and say hello. Are there any other features that you would like to see come back or be introduced for the first time in the next installment of the Titanfall franchise? Please let us know down in the comment section below.